curious if you would be able to share at least one of them with us.
Just some background. I come from a great family. I've never had any head trauma. I've never been diagnosed with a mental health condition. I've never been on psychotropics. No history of mental illness in my family. I live in Hawaii. 46 years old. I'm a father of three. Uh, I've got a master's in psych, another master's in ed admin. I'm a working professional, currently working on my dissertation for my doctorates in clinical psychology, where I plan on opening a clinic for experiencers. And I've always been fascinated with UFOs and the paranormal since I've been a kid. It's one of the very few, if not the most prominent topic that's always captured my imagination. I've never had any paranormal experiences growing up. My journey has been interesting, and it's been fascinating to say the least, and I'm very new to this, so please forgive me. But throughout the years, I've always thought of Dr. Greer and CE5 and transcendental meditation as bunk. I always thought it was for hippies. I thought it was for motherfucking new age, love and light hippies. I always dismissed it for years. Until I started reading more about it. I've started seeing videos about altered states of consciousness, and because I'm doing my dissertation for my doctorates on altered states of consciousness, I'm like, okay, let's have some intellectual curiosity or honesty, and I started looking into it. I'm like, okay, what's this about? Does it work? What if I contact some negative or malevolent entities, right? Just fair questions and shit. And the response that I've always gotten was like, you have to have the right intent. It's all about intent. John, Christian, and Daniel, you've always mentioned intent. So I looked into various transcendental meditation practices from historical antiquity, from ancient cultures, from the Native Americans, from the fucking South Americans, from Asians, from Hindus and shit. And even with modern Western science, with fucking the theta state of the brain, right? When your brain, the logical side, the rational side of your brain is quelled and quieted. So I started experimenting with Fibonacci sequence tones outside in my backyard. Mindfulness meditation, for a couple of days. I'm like, okay, let's see if I can quiet this rational, logical side of my brain that I typically use to navigate the world. When I started playing these Fibonacci sequence tones, I engaged in mindfulness meditation, and for those of you that are listening, it's a form of meditation where you turn your attention inwards, and when you're aware of thoughts that come into your consciousness or your awareness or feelings from these thoughts, you recognize that, hey, they're there, but you don't hold on to it and you don't feed it. You just acknowledge, okay, I'm having this thought that, hey, tomorrow I got to go to work, or next week I got to pay a bill. It's there, but you don't feed it. You just let it go. Focus on the breathing, right? Focus on being in the now. So as the meditation deepens, right, all that there is pure experience. And you guys have mentioned Grant Cameron, because we've interviewed that guy, and the thing that stuck with me, it's like, hey, there's no judgment, there's no afterlife. All that there is experience, right? So I combined this mindfulness meditation utilizing Fibonacci sequence tones in my backyard. I focused my intention on a singular point, on a star in the sky, right? And after a while, once that rational, logical side of my brain started to quiet, I would notice the star. It would start to move from its original fixed position, ever so slightly. I'm like, okay, that's curious. And I thought it was parallax effect. And by the way, I've got perfect vision. I got no eye floaters. I've got 20/15 vision in each eye. Started to notice it move. Like, oh, maybe I'm seeing things. So I'd cover one of my eyes, rub it, and be like, okay, it's still moving. Cover the other eye, and it would still move. So anyway, as the meditation deepened, and this star meditation comes from a Native American type of practice, okay? And I'll put it in the chat later. So as the meditation deepens, I'm focusing my attention on the star, egoless, mindful meditation on the star starting to move, right? As it deepens, the star would start to send these bright pulses and flashes of light. Okay, that's not just twinkling, that's not atmospheric condition. And living on Oahu, the sky is super clear. There's very little light pollution. So the star started to move, but it would never deviate from its fixed position. It would just kind of move and dance around. It would start to send these bright flashes, right? Then I started becoming aware of this space in between, as Lou Elizondo is so fond of quoting in many of the interviews that he's done on YouTube. Um, the behavior of the star, aside from it moving and flashing, as I became more deep into this transcendental meditation, it would start to pop out of the sky. Like it became 3D, like I could almost grab it. And in the process of this fucking thing coming out of the sky into like this 3D space, where the star had like a dimensionality to it where you can, it's like you can almost grab it with your hand. Like, okay, I started becoming aware of this space in between, this dimensionality, right? And then I remembered what people have been telling me that are seasoned CE5 people. They're like, put your intention out, put good intention vibes out that you want to make contact, you want to know and meet whatever these beings are. So I started emanating these intentional thoughts. I'm like, okay, I want to meet you. I want to know why you're here. And this is when the star popped out. So let me meet you, whoever or whatever you are. I mean well. In this space in between, fuck, this sounds absolutely nuts, but I started to make out the form of these three beings that just come out from the star that I was meditating on. They started dropping down from the sky, and I could make their form out. Like you could see I could see their form, and they were made of this transparent active static. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Right? So they descend on top of the mountain behind my house, about 15 feet away. They come to rest on the mountain, and they're about 3.5 to 4 feet tall. They didn't have a solid form, but they had a humanoid kind of presence, or they had limbs, but I could see through them. And I'm like, whoa, is that them? Or is that you guys? Is that you? So they were watching me standing. I'm standing up, and I did this stupid fucking thing, like in Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, that Steven Spielberg movie at the end, where the scientists are like this, and they make a gesture to the fucking alien. So that's what came to mind. I'm like, okay, time to say hi. So I do the fucking same thing. I'm like, I stretch out my arm, and then I do the same gesture as in the movie. I know it sounds kind of hokey, but as soon as I do that, one of the beings on that was standing on the right, there's three of them, gestured the same thing. They mirrored what I did with its other hand. Then all of a sudden, I started hearing a bunch of these voices in my mind. I couldn't make them out, and I'm like, I can't be hallucinating. But by the way, I'm completely sober. I'm like, okay, why are you guys here? I say it out loud. I beam it out with my mind, like, why are you guys here? Like, how can I understand you? There was this car alarm that was in the distance that I heard fucking beeping down the street. Just starts going off, wee, right? And as soon as that car alarm went off, the being on the left shapeshifted into this fucking wolf thing. It became like this angry kind of like dog wolf thing, and it assumed this like aggressive form. And I'm like, whoa, hey, that's just a car alarm. I come in peace. That has nothing to do with me. Don't worry, it's a car alarm. And as soon as I said that out loud, and I was trying to communicate it to these beings, the car alarm fucking turned off, and then it turned back from a wolf back to its original humanoid form. Fast forward, after some communication, all of a sudden, from the corner of my left eye, and I'm standing up this whole time, I see this bright fucking dot, coming out from the left of the peripheral of my vision. It's like this amber fucking bright thing that just starts growing bigger and bigger. And as soon as it assumed its triangular form, it was maybe about 30 feet away above this mango tree. I look, and I'm like, what the fuck? And it was this motherfucking triangular fucking technical craft that had these three lights in each corner, and there was a big light in the center, and the outline of it was lighted. It was like this amber thing. And as soon as I realized what it was, it took my breath away. I'm like, fuck, it's real. And when I said that, it just starts moving like effortlessly, like there was no sound, non-inertial movement, and the color of this amber light was unearthly, like I've never seen before. I could feel my heart beating. I took steps back, and it just took my breath away. I didn't even have the wherewithal to bust out my fucking camera. And I'm just watching this thing. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm fond of saying this, that seeing that technical craft in these beings tops seeing the birth of my 3 kids. Long story short, after my initial breakthrough, for the next couple of days and weeks and months, I started to experience aspects of the phenomena without even fucking meditating. I would have these downloads and these synchronicities with people in the community that were more than just coincidental. Started seeing motherfucking shadow people right before I go to sleep with my eyes closed and open, and it would freak me the fuck out. I'm like, oh fuck, I went fucking crazy. So I started talking to Pat P. Pat P is Dr. Greer's right hand for the ambassador program. We've talked on the phone many times. I would tell Pat P, hey Pat P, this is what I've experienced. This is what I've went through. This is what I'm continuing to experience with these shadow beings. I don't know what the fuck they are. And she gave me some perspective and insight as to how to kind of frame whenever these things would come into my awareness. And today, now I'm at the point it's like these shadow beings, they don't even fucking scare me. I see them every night with my eyes open and closed right before I go to sleep. And I interact with them completely sober. So there's this other dimensionality aspect that, I think has always been here. These beings or whatever the hell these things are, it's always been here. We just need to attune our consciousness to the frequency that they exist in. And everyone has this capacity, some more so than others, but I'm I'm a believer. I'm an experiencer. I want a motherfucker to tell me to my face that I'm crazy. I want that, you know? And now I'm putting my name and face and my credentials out there because now I don't give a fuck. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm a well-adjusted member of society. I'm educated. I'm articulate. I'm a father of 3. This is what I've experienced and this is what I've went through. And it's not to convince other people of what I've been through. I'm just sharing my story. But yeah, I'm glad to have this forum to talk with other experiencers. And for those of you that are on the fence of sharing what you've been through with the phenomena, you're not crazy, okay? I think it's more crazy for people to deny the reality and existence of the phenomena. There's more evidence that the phenomena is a real thing. You stretch back into historical antiquity. Fuck, there's more evidence for the phenomena than there is for the historical Jesus. All right? So I'm confident in sharing my story and learning from others. Yeah. The end. Sorry if I
Thank
went
you.
over my. I know I fucking talk a lot, but
No, it's good. Thank you so much for sharing, George. Like I said, I've always kind of been curious on the full details. I know that you mentioned the triangle craft, but everything leading up to that, man, I really appreciate that. I know everybody else here does. So it's kind of one of those, you touched on a lot of things too when you're talking about your experience. One being that, you're not crazy. And I agree. None of us that have had experiences are crazy. I mean, yeah, there's some to be said about schizophrenia, but that's not the case here. I
yeah.
think it's starting to get to the point to where if everything is that's seen in the sky that's anomalous is put down as a mylar balloon, miners with jetpacks, parallax of regular things seen, and like the pilots, oh, they don't know what they're looking at.
Pregnant midgets with physical deformities in
Yes,
Virginia. That's what the government fucking said to the community and the news. Hey, these 3 girls didn't see fucking brown aliens with red eyes. They saw a pregnant motherfucking midget with physical deformities. I mean, come on.
right. And it's
Seriously.
like one post I saw on Reddit. Oh, well, that's when we're in Wisconsin. Oh, that was a water heater rocket. And my comment was, look, okay, yeah, there could be prosaic. I can't stand that word, but I'll use it. There'll be some prosaic explanations for, oh heck, 80% of the things seen, 90% of the things seen. Even if it was 99% of the things seen prosaic, all it takes is 1%.
All it
All it
takes is
takes is
one.
one, right? And at this point in time, if you're coming up with pregnant midgets and you're coming up with water heater rockets, then your explanations are getting to the point where it's more ridiculous to believe that than it is that it's actually a UAP or some NHI, controlled craft or some drone from Ziegelplocht, which is, 20 million
There
light
it
years
is.
away. Right. So it's like, okay, I get it. And so who's crazy? I would think it would be more, it's going to start coming to the point where the ones that are quote unquote crazy are the ones that are still believe that essentially we're the only life in the universe and that the earth is flat and we're surrounded by a firmament. I mean, it's just, and I'm not trying to dog, I'm really not. There's a lot of different ways to go about thinking about reality, but come on. So going back to, because I know we've had some questions. So I know that we interviewed Grant Cameron, and that was an honor and a privilege, and I hope to interview him again. Okay, and thank you, George, for having all Christian and myself and Daniel in on that conversation with Grant. That was amazing. One of the points that he brought up is that when you see these objects and when they're performing these things, or when paranormal things happen, and I agree with Steve Mera and Gillis as far as there's really no separation between paranormal and the UFO phenomena. It's one and the same. Okay, Valet also talks about that. But when you're seeing these shows that you described with your experience, it is just for that. It is a that Cameron believes it's a show for us so that we can start believing. It gathers our attention. It makes us say, WTF is that, right? And that's how they get into our psyche. That's how they get into our worldwide culture, which we're still seeing grow to this day. And so, with your experience, through your meditation techniques that you so exquisitely described, to the actual event where the star was starting to move, and you put your intent out there, right? And they came to you, was especially the coming to you, do you feel it was a show just for you? Or do you think that if I was, let's say, I don't know about frequency sharing, but if I was who I am and always believed in this stuff, if I was 3 miles away, would I have seen at the same time those lights that were practically over your head? I know it's a pretty boring question, isn't it?
No, no,
But
that's a deep question. That's something that we asked Grant Cameron. I've asked Steve Mera about it, even Nathaniel Gillis. Um, Grant Cameron so eloquently coined the term. It's the wow factor that the phenomena can manifest in a paranormal way or a fucking UFO UAP kind of way, where it grabs your attention, and the intent of its manifestation or the behavior is to fucking shock you. It's to pull the rug underneath out of your motherfucking feet. Like you think you know what reality is? You think you got this all figured out? Okay, we're gonna fucking show you something so outrageous and ridiculous that you're going to reflect on it, and it's going to cause you to question everything that you thought you knew. Ontological shock is a real existential dark night of the soul. And when I had my initial breakthrough this past July of 2023, this past summer, it fucked me up. It totally fucked me up for like 2 months. I couldn't see my clients. I was like, fuck, am I crazy? Because I started to continue to experience aspects of the phenomenon without even meditating. The good thing of having forums like this is that we are ahead of the curve by talking about it, by putting your name and face out there, and showing the public that, hey, we're not crazy woo new age types. We're just regular people like you. We're just a little bit more ahead of the curve. And it's our responsibility as experiencers that have come out of this fucking closet of shame to guide people that are just starting to become hip or open and aware of whatever they've been through. Like, fuck, I'm not alone.
What's